number 6. Genesis chapter number 6 is where we're going to be for just a few moments tonight. Not going to be real long or anything. Just want to kind of go over something with you here and read scripture and give you a couple of thoughts and everything. Because as soon as we finish this, Dora's going to come forward and we're going to have a quick meeting regarding Bible school, who's doing what and what's needed and things like that. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that tonight. And then we'll have another meeting next Sunday night about it because it'll be the following Saturday. So we're yesterday made 2 weeks from Bible school. So be inviting. We got the flyers printed on the back table back there. So as several of you took those flyers this morning, hanging them out there, putting them out there. And then of course we have that same flyer on our Facebook page. You can share and repost and stuff like that. But then we're also going to do schedule an event on Facebook to where we can actually invite people that way, and then you can share that to your page and invite your friends. And we're going to do that for Bible school, and we'll also do that for homecoming too. And then that kind of also will help give us an idea of how many people to expect and different things like that if people accept it and all that stuff. But do remember all that coming up. It's good stuff. We're looking forward to it with Bible school the 31st, and then we got special singing. Larry Arbogast will be with us August 1st. During the AM service. You're going to really enjoy him, and he's been a friend. Well, Dora's known him her entire life, and everything. He's just a good friend, and thankful for him and his wife. So be here that morning for special singing, and then August 15th will be our homecoming and stuff. So be in prayer about homecoming. It's going to be 10:45 that morning. So we'll back it up just a little bit to give some more extra time there. And Servant Hart will be here singing. Caleb Kidsmiller will be preaching and stuff. So we're looking forward to that homecoming. I'm looking forward to it. Being able to sit back and listen to some good singing and preaching and stuff. So remember that on August the 15th. But in your Bibles this evening, Genesis chapter number 6, kind of, I guess, piggybacking a little bit off of some of the stuff I said this morning and things we was talking about how we live in dangerous times, perilous times, and how all the evil in the world going on in people's minds, and just everything seems like you turn on the news, everything you read, you see, you hear, it's all bad. Anymore, it's almost one of those things, it's like, well, nothing surprises me anymore, because you see it, hear it all. And, and it got me thinking, I kind of mentioned it a little bit this morning, but talked a little bit about Noah's Ark in reference to that. And that's actually kind of where we're going to go tonight, just to look at a couple of thoughts and stuff here in Genesis chapter number 6. I love the first 11 chapters of Genesis. There's so much in it. And one of these days we are going to go through this verse by verse, chapter by chapter. We could spend a lot of time in these chapters. But basically the whole foundation of the world, the whole foundation of your Bible comes from these first 11 chapters in Genesis. So it's quite interesting and an awesome study, and it's some of my favorite things to study. But in chapter 6, starting verse number 1, it says, "And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days it shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth." Notice that statement there. It says, God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only what? Evil continually. That means it didn't stop. Everything they thought about, every action they did, everything going on, it was what? Evil. It was evil thoughts. And what kind of time are we living in now? I made a statement this morning. It makes me think about our culture today, not just here in the United States, but worldwide. In comparison, how close are we living to the way they lived during the times of Noah? Because we're seeing the evil. It gets worse every day. It multiplies every day. How close are we to the way that it was prior to the flood? I don't know the answer to that. I know it's a rhetorical question. None of us sit here and know that. But when you read these scriptures and really study them out, We can't be that far off. We just can't be. And it says that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. That means the whole imagination. It means purposes and desires, everyday living. That's what that idea carries in the Hebrew. It was your everyday living and thoughts and things that you did. It was evil continually. And notice it says, and it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. You know, that's an amazing verse right there to really think about. First of all, one thing we got to keep in mind, no matter what, God makes no mistake. He makes no mistake. Now, again, I've said it before, that's hard for us to really understand and grasp, because I don't know about you, but I make mistakes every day, multiple mistakes every day. I'm human. I make mistakes all the time. And we live in an imperfect world. We're imperfect people, but God makes no mistake and stuff. But God, like I said this morning, God's sovereign over all. He knows all. He's God. He created everything. But yet He also gave you and I something called free will. And we have the free will to either choose to serve Him or not serve Him. That's what it ultimately boils down to. And it says that it grieved His heart. Why did it grieve His heart? It grieved His heart because of all the evil, and that they chose not to serve Him. They chose not to serve Him. They chose the evil things. And they chose the things of the devil. They chose the things, the pleasures of sin that felt good for a season. They chose those things just like we're seeing people choose them today. And it says, and the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast and the creeping thing and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But verse number 8 changes everything. It says, but Noah. I've said it many times before, that little 3-letter word, B-U-T, but, in the Bible has such significance. Why? Because a lot of times that's when the scene changes. That's when something's about to happen. That's when God's going to use somebody or use something for good. And we read over that word a lot of times and don't pay much attention, but pay attention to that little word but, because it's probably going to be a change of events. And notice verse number 8, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Now it don't tell us a whole lot of detail about that and stuff, but no doubt it's telling us here that Noah pleased God. And God found favor on him, his life, and the way that he lived his life. Now, that's interesting too. You think of all the people that were on planet Earth during that time, there's one man that stands out in God's eyes that He was pleased with. Out of all the billions of people that would have been created during that time, the multiplying and stuff like that, it says, but Noah found grace. It didn't say a certain group of people. It didn't say a certain tribe of people, a location of people, or 100 people. It's one person's name here that we know, and that's Noah. And you know, Henry Morris, really the father of creationism and stuff, wrote many books, and he's a scientist, engineer, but Christian. And he said that at the time of Noah's Ark, if you look at the trees and stuff, the family trees, and how procreation happens and all that stuff, there were probably more people on planet Earth at that time than there are today. And that's hard to believe. That blows our mind to think about. But procreation and stuff, during this time of Noah, there were probably a few more people here then than there are now. And of course there's reasons for that, and we could go into a lot of that one day and stuff and why that is. But it says, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. I'm thankful for that tonight. I don't know about you, but I'm thankful he found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Just think, had there been nobody. Just think had it not been Noah. You know, what would have happened then? You know, but I'm thankful that there was one man. There was a family that found grace in the eyes of the Lord. It says, these are the generations of Noah. And it tells us Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. Well, it's important to walk with God, isn't it? Yes, it is. It's important to know who you're walking with. while you're walking with him. It says that Noah begat 3 sons, that Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God. The earth was filled with violence. That's where we're at today, isn't it? We're filled with violence. There's wars everywhere, rumors of wars everywhere, shootings happening daily, robbings happening, kidnaps. I mean, all kind of stuff, you name it. You can't even take your family to the ballpark anymore. Just last night in Washington, D.C. at the baseball game, shooting. I mean, it's happening everywhere. And it says that there was violence. It filled the earth. It filled the land. That's what we're seeing today. It says, and God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. See, it says that it had corrupted his way. What they wanted, what they liked, what felt good to them. Not what God's word said. They wanted to do what was right in their eyes. Well, the Bible tells us about that, don't it? There's a way that seemed right to a man, but what does it lead to? Destruction, right? So, and we see that happening right here. We're seeing that today. And you know, Noah preached, and he preached, and he preached. And at the end of the day and stuff, we know that the only people that went on that boat with him was his family. Yes. Right there, first and foremost, that should tell us how important our own family is to get on the boat. Yes. We should be taking care of our family first. But he preached, and he preached, and he preached, and they were the only ones that believed. And you know what? People would have called him crazy. Yeah. It never had rained before. Think about that for a minute. Here's a man standing out here saying, it's going to rain, I'm telling you, it's going to rain, it's going to flood, it's going to destroy everything. Never had seen rain before, but he believed God. Yes, he did. People would have thought, well, you're crazy, man. Well, you're crazy. I was telling Dora yesterday, I think it was, I said, think about it. I said, Noah was the first ever conspiracy theorist. People thought he was crazy. Until it started to rain. Yes. And then they was like, uh-oh. You know, we preach the gospel and we tell people to repent. And we tell them, hey, Jesus is coming again. We tell them, hey, Jesus is soon to come. But they keep living the way they're living. They keep living in the corrupt and the violence and the evil and the wickedness. And this world's going down that path. And we tell them, hey, Jesus is coming. Most people won't believe that until after it happens. Most people will not believe that until after it happens. And then we know what happens from that point on. We've studied that in great detail. But it says that the earth was also corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. He said, make thee an ark of gopher wood, rooms that shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. This is the fashion which thou shalt make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above, and the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof, with lower, second, and third stories that shalt thou make it. And behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. You know, God destroyed mankind once. He destroyed this earth once with water. The second time it happens, it won't be with water, it will be with fire. Many people thought Noah was crazy. They thought it's not going to do anything. It's never done that before. What's he talking about? Listen, we've read what happens in Revelation. That stuff's never happened before either, but it's going to one day. Listen, I think, I think back to those verses of how it says that it grieved his heart. How it grieved him. I can't help but think that he looks down on the earth today and he's grieved by the evil that he sees. the wickedness that he sees. People not wanting anything to do with him. People just pushing him aside, throwing him out of our schools. And then, and one thing that for me personally aggravates me so bad is I love the story of Noah and the ark. And I love God's promise at the end of rainbow. And now the world's taken that rainbow and they've perverted it. Yes. They've twisted it. They've changed it. God's promised to us that he would never flood the earth again. A worldwide global flood. He wouldn't do that again. And yet mankind took that symbol and they perverted it. I read a statistic last night in one of the magazines I get in the mail and stuff from Answers in Genesis. And it said that right now in 2021, that 5.7% of the population identify as LGBTQ. Almost 6% of the population identifies that. Right here in the United States of America. That's a lot. That's a high number. It's went up over 1% in just 2 years, I believe is what it said. And we're seeing that, and people will take that symbol of God's promise, that rainbow, that beautiful rainbow, and they pervert it. And I can't help but think how that grieves his heart. Listen, those people need Jesus as much as anybody. And we need to preach the gospel to them and stuff. But listen, it's just an example of how this world is taking things from the Bible, taking promises of God, taking different things and perverting it or twisting it and changing it. And it's sad. It's sad. How close are we? I don't know, but I think we're close. Like I told you before, don't believe anybody that starts throwing out dates and stuff. That's false prophet. But listen, I think scripturally speaking, we're close. I really do. It's crazy the things that we're seeing happen and the laws we're seeing passed and the beliefs of people. And, they talk about God as love. People do. Listen, you're exactly right. He is love. He's a God of love. Nobody's loved you. Nobody will ever love you more than he's loved you. But that does not mean he will dismiss your sin to allow you into heaven. He will never do it. Why? Because sin has to always be dealt with. Sin has to always be punished. That's why darkness filled the land when Jesus hung on the cross. From 12 o'clock noon to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 hours, it says darkness filled the land. Why? Because at that moment in time, Jesus had placed the sin of the world on him. There was actual separation at that time between him and his Father because he couldn't look on the sin. He's holy. And he held the sins of the world. Think about that. He died for you and for me. He held the sins of the world. Listen, from the very beginning, God had a plan. He had a purpose. He knew from the beginning, hey, I'm going to have to send my son Jesus to die. He knew what was going to happen. And that blows my mind to think that, hey, he knew we were going to mess up from the beginning and Jesus was going to have to come and suffer a brutal, horrible death so that we could be saved. But listen, he loved us so much, he couldn't imagine heaven without you and me. It's unbelievable to think about that. But it says that after he gave him the instructions there, he says that everything shall die, but with thee I will establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee. And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark, to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female. I like those verses because it just tells us divine order and the way it should be. It doesn't say male and male or female and female. It's a male and a female on Noah's Ark. Why? So they could procreate. It says of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind. 2 of every sort shall come unto thee, to keep them alive, and thou shalt and take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them. Thus did Noah, according to all that God commanded him, so did he. I love that last verse there. We talked a little bit about that this morning. God expects obedience. He wants us to be obedient to Him. He wants us to obey Him. Guess what Noah did? He obeyed Him. He showed great faith here. He showed great obedience here. It said, thus did Noah according to all that God commanded him. So did he. Now, I don't know what all those conversations look like back and forth between God and Noah and stuff, but I don't see anywhere here where Noah was kicking and screaming and bucking against him. It says that Noah walked with God. He trusted God. He believed God. His story is a lot different than you think of somebody like Jonah. Jonah constantly was what? Arguing with God. Said, I don't want to go to Nineveh. They deserve what's coming. Isn't that the mindset of the church a lot today, like Jonah? When we should be more like Noah, and we should just obey and get our family in order. Make sure our family's taken care of. You realize your first ministry is your family, husbands, wives, kids, mom, dad, brother, sister. That's your first ministry is your family. Noah gave us perfect example of that. He made sure his family was on that boat with him. He didn't win anybody else to get on there with him, but hey, he got his family on there with him. He got his family. Could you imagine if God had closed that door and he'd have had other people on there, but his 3 sons weren't? Could you imagine that? What a sad thought that is, but the truth of the matter is that's happening a lot today. That's happening a lot today. I'm thankful that Noah made sure his wife and sons and their wives were on that boat with him. I like the obedience of Noah. Thus did Noah according to not some, but all that God commanded him. So did he. I like that. We want to end there tonight. It's kind of just an overview of chapter 6 there. And one of these days, we're going to dig in deep into Genesis because it's one of my favorite books. I love creation. I love everything about it and how we get to where we are today. There's so many truths out of it. And it's amazing you look at creation and how it can all point to the cross. It's amazing the comparisons between the two and stuff. But that's where we're going to end tonight. I hope maybe you got something out of that tonight. But I love the obedience of Noah and how we really need that today. And I can't help but think how close are we to how they were back then as far as violence and evil thoughts and imaginations and all that stuff that happened then. Where do we compare to that? I can't help but think we're close to that. And it's sad to think how it grieved God's heart then. There's no doubt grieving his heart now. No doubt about it. So pray one for another. Pray one for another.